We have some breaking news today as the Leafs have officially put John Klingberg on the LTIR, and they've made some moves calling up Alex Steeves. So we're going to break that down in this episode of Leafs Digest, as well as Conor Timmins. We have an update on his front. He is ready to return. But before we get into all of that news, about 80% of you guys who are watching right now are not subscribed. So make sure to hit the button. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Your support on both of our videos has been unbelievable. So thank you guys for that. Darius, let's get into it. There's a lot to discuss today. Wild stuff is happening, and I'm just going to get right into the main topic. It dropped about an hour ago as the time I'm recording, so screenshot right here. The Maple Leafs have recalled Alex Steeves, and defenseman John Klingberg has been placed on the long-term injured reserve. Now, there's a lot to break down here. The biggest thing being, obviously, Klingberg. He's officially on the LTIR, and I made a video yesterday on Alex Steeves. I did not think the day after he will be called up, but let's focus on Klingberg for a minute. We'll get into Steeves after. What are your thoughts on this? We thought it was maybe coming. I personally did not expect it to happen this soon, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? This is crazy news.
Well, we've been talking about it for weeks. Is it LTIR? Is it going to be a trade? We didn't know what was going to happen. All we know is that he wasn't playing up to the level we know John Klingberg can. And we were seeing, reports, and Sheldon Keefe was talking about, his hips are bothering him. We got the info that it was his hips. Mike Johnson yesterday, claimed that he was on the plane with them back from Sweden or to Sweden. He said that he looked incredibly injured. He couldn't really walk. And obviously a long plane ride where you can't stretch and all this stuff, it's going to, stiffen up on him. So when you're a hockey player and your hips are bothering you, that is tough. You're going to have to either rehab it somehow or get surgery done. And I think that's what the question is now. Yes, he's on LTIR. Is his season done? I'm not sure that's the case. It's looking like that. And I think if you're the Leafs head office, if you want to start making moves, you're kind of hoping that it's done. You're hoping that you can maybe put this to bed, just put it on the LTIR and forget about it. But I'm not sure that's the case. And I'm not sure his career is necessarily done. We've seen a lot of guys in, recent memory come back. They might not be as effective, but we've seen them come back from hip injuries. So I think it's interesting to watch if he's going to rehab this, if he's going to get a surgery. We don't even know what's wrong with his hip. Obviously they do, but we have to stay tuned for that. All we know is he's on the LTIR and he won't be playing for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and this has a lot of different layers to it. When you think about it, you can think about, obviously he's out for the foreseeable future, whether it's the rest of the season, we don't know. And then you think about to the offseason. If the Leafs had any idea about this injury, why would they have signed him in the first place? And we can make 100 videos on this, but again, $4.15 million is now, I guess, not technically off the books, depending on what happens with them. But like you mentioned about the trade, that'll be another video where we can discuss all that. But it's very interesting. You're looking at his stats here, and I mean, we keep saying this every time we talk about John Klingberg. They signed him this offseason, and us Leafs fans were hoping that he would return to some semblance of his Dallas Stars self. Last year, he was not very good with the Wild or the Ducks, especially towards the end of the season. The injury clearly bothered him. So now the question goes on Brad Treliving. What does this mean for, the whole process behind this? And again, this is something that'll be lingering for a while. But as of right now, it's not a very good look for the front office as well. And it hurts a little bit because I think if Klingberg obviously was healthy, he would have been a very, very good piece to this team. Obviously not known necessarily for his defense, but we have a very, very thin, blue line core right now. So having him back would have been nice if he was able to come back to a level of himself. But like you said, the big thing here is he wasn't healthy the whole season, and that's why he played so poorly, and it's making more and more sense. But the Brad Treliving question is one that's going to be on all of our minds for a while.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, a lot of people are going to ask the question, was this done on purpose? You're going to see a lot of that now, right? Was it done on purpose and they knew he was injured and just throw him an LTIR? I think you could just not sign him if you know he's injured and save that money anyway. So I think they wanted to add him because he could be a good piece if healthy, right? He can add a lot offensively. That's not necessarily what the Leafs need, but he would have been a good piece if he was healthy and playing like he can. But I think they did have some inkling that, okay, his hip's hurting. It's not like they didn't know that at all. They must have known that from the start. Yep. Okay, his hip's hurting. And if, he has to go on LTIR, he does, we save the cap hit, right? So I think that's where we are now. And if they want to go out and make a move, I think they still can. I think they absolutely have the freedom to use that 4.1 million. And if he says, he's ready to go, they're just going to have to shut him down for the rest of the year if they use that cap space. That's the business of the hockey world, right? So I think they're in an interesting spot right now. It frees up a little bit for them to do. And it looks like there's no answers. There's no answers. If you head into maybe December or January, there's no answers on his health. So you might just have to shut him down for the year. And even if he, continues his career somewhere else, That doesn't matter right now. They're going to have to do what's best for the team right now.
Yeah, and thinking back again, I brought this up a couple times. That practice a week or two ago when he left 10 minutes into it, maybe he re-aggravated the injury, which it's probably a mix of they knew he was a little bit banged up when they signed him, and then it just got worse. But let's quickly touch on Alex Steves now. If you want to see a bit of a more in-depth, detailed explanation about him, I covered it in yesterday's video. He was kind of the guy who was shocking everyone. And I mean, Darius, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on him. So they obviously replaced Klingberg with a forward, and this begs the question about now Ryan Reeves. That's another question for another video. His future is in jeopardy here now with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But looking at his stats here, 51 points last season with the Marlies. This season is up to 18 and 14 games, 11 goals. Darius, to be quite honest with you, he's very, very good. He deserved this chance. At least he's been good in the AHL, and I'm very happy that he gets it. The Ryan Reeves question is an interesting one. They're not replacing him with the defenseman. You can bring up the questions about trades. Trades probably going to happen at some point soon. But Alex Steves, what are your thoughts on that? A bit of a surprise choice for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I love the way he's been playing. It's hard to score in the American Hockey League, and he's doing it at a high level this year. It's really been a breakout year for him, and he's seen some time with the Leafs in the last 2 seasons. Very little time, maybe 5 games, 3 games here and there. But I've loved what I've seen from him this year. He's putting up great numbers, and I think the Leafs are in that part of the season too where they just want to see what they have. This is a guy they want to reward for playing so well with the Marlies. They're going to bring him up and see what he has. Maybe McMahon will set for a game. Reeves is still sitting, so he'll probably, he'll get in for Reeves. I don't think Reeves is going to get into too many games throughout the rest of the season. They'll probably use him pretty sparingly. But yeah, I think they're just trying to see what they have with Steve, see what he can do at the NHL level this year, just because he has that confidence now. I think confidence is huge in the NHL. So now that he's gained a little bit of that through the AHL, he can make an impact at the NHL level. So I think it'd be really interesting to see what he can do. And like you mentioned, just touched on there for a second, Conor Timmins now reactivated. Yep. They were able to call up an extra guy with the LTIR room. So they call up a guy, there will be some healthy scratches. Like I mentioned, Reeves, they call up a guy in Steves to see what they have in him. Timmins is on the back end. We haven't seen what he has so far this year. So should be it's going to be a very interesting Thanksgiving weekend for the Leafs this weekend.
Yeah, and you mentioned a very, very good point there about Steves. Like you said, he's hot right now in the AHL. He's scoring a ton. You can see this screenshot here. I brought it up in yesterday, but reminder as Alex Steves gets a deserved recall. He's playing the best hockey of his life. He extended his point streak to 11 games. If you're going to give him a chance, it makes sense to do it right now. I never really thought, for some reason, it didn't really click in my mind that a Klingberg LTIR and then an Alex Steves replacement would make sense. But I mean, it makes total sense. And like you said, confidence is everything. In his case, if he's able to go out there and perform very, very well and just continue his, play like he was in the AHL, obviously it's a different level. But like you said, scoring is not easy down there, and he's 11 goals in 14 games. Maybe you'll catch some lightning in a bottle with him, and it's exciting to see. And I'm happy he gets a well-deserved chance, and maybe he'll be a guy who makes a big impact going forward. And one quick thing, like you mentioned on the Conor Timmins, the Leafs are preparing for Conor Timmins to play tomorrow. Sheldon Keefe says cautious. They'll make that final decision up until the last minute. So it's looking like he'll be activated and he will be good to go tomorrow. Obviously, he's been dealing with an injury since the preseason. Last season, he had a very, very impressive season as the Maple Leafs. What you're looking for out of him tomorrow, or any quick thoughts before we wrap up?
I just want to see if he's up to speed, really. I just want to see what he has so far this year. We saw a taste of him last year, and I thought he was good. He was never really a liability. He wasn't a superstar defenseman or anything, or a big deadline acquisition, but he was solid, right? And I think he always really has been. Yeah, that's all you need. He was really good in the OHL and always was. And then he was dealing with concussion problems after he got picked by the Arizona Coyotes in the first round. And then he kind of made his way to the Leafs, and he was pretty good last year. And I would like to see what they have out of him this year. He gained a lot of weight in the offseason, so hopefully he throws the ball around a little bit and has a little bit more of a physical presence. But I'm just excited to see what they have in him, because I know last year he was quite a surprise. Like, I didn't think that we'd get that much out of him. So it's gonna be exciting to see what he has so far this year.
Yeah, it happened at a pretty exciting time as the Leafs are finally gonna start playing games on a normal schedule, as the last 2 weeks have been a little bit crazy. I'm excited to see. Hopefully he can be as good as he was last season and maybe even better. But that'll wrap up the video. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section about John Klingberg and all this stuff, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.